I'm pregnant with James's child. It's going to be born soon. Please, break up with James. Before I could even be surprised, I was disgusted by my sister's sudden arrival at my home. I never expected her to brag about having an affair with my husband and getting pregnant. She was shamelessly outrageous. This is happening because you couldn't get pregnant no matter how long we waited. It's all your fault. You're just a defective product because you're infertile. Courtney and James looked down on me and laughed mockingly. The sight of them cozying up to each other filled me with disgust. I didn't know sisters can be this different. I was so mistreated that I couldn't even speak. James's look at me was shockingly cold. I'm going to remarry, so let's get divorced. If that's what you want, fine. I'll let you go. But I wonder if it's really James's child. After all, that person. Courtney and James left the house, and I was left alone. But being alone allowed me to think deeply. Actually, about that. Things are getting interesting. Just you watch. I will definitely make them pay for what they've done to me. My name is Kelly Hansen. I married James, the vice president and son of the president, when I was 30. My in-laws, who had been very kind to me since I was just an employee, introduced us, which led to our marriage. My parents also blessed our marriage, and the relationship with everyone around was good. We worked at the same company even after getting married. And everything seemed to be going well initially. I never imagined that I would be plunged into such misery later. James changed completely after we got married. Hey, James. If you're going to be late, could you at least let me know in advance? What? Why do I have to manage my schedule for you? It's none of your business what I do. But, I have to prepare dinner. Shut up. Don't tell me what to do. You want to know just for your own convenience. Despite saying that, he would get angry when dinner wasn't ready when he wanted to eat. Watching James leave while yelling, I sighed. Soon after we got married, James started spending money recklessly. He was throwing work to his subordinates and hanging out all the time. Claiming it was business, he roamed the nightlife almost every day, coming home in the morning. I thought he had settled down after becoming a working adult. But it turns out it was just a facade. What do you mean? I went to the same university as him, and back then, he was famously extravagant. He used to party every day and apparently had several girlfriends at the same time. It was so bad that the president got angry. I heard he was almost disowned. After that, he calmed down and seemed to quiet down. I was so shocked I couldn't speak. I could clearly feel my voice trembling as I managed to squeeze it out. No way, I never knew that. The colleague who told me this nodded several times beside me. When he joined the company, he was really serious. Everyone thought he had woken up after being scolded. The president must have thought so too, that's why he made him vice president. I see. Kelly, you're well regarded within the company. Introducing you as his wife. He must have let his guard down, thinking he could take over the company. Indeed, James's reputation visibly worsened. There were even voices saying that James should be fired. And the current general manager should be made vice president. That bastard, he mocked me again. He should know his place. James kept complaining about the general manager at home. Since he was my direct boss, it was uncomfortable for me. Why is my wife working under him? Well, I'm in charge of accounting. Even as I trembled at his yelling, my response seemed to displease him. James hit the wall of the room, making a loud noise. Shut up. Don't talk back. Fire him. It's harassment or whatever, you work with him. You can figure something out. It's impossible, he's a serious person. Don't side with him over your own husband. James kept complaining but showed no signs of effort. Moreover, he had never contributed financially to the household since we got married. I was managing all the household finances with my salary. Now that I'm working full-time, it's somewhat manageable, but I'm anxious about the future. Hey, can you contribute some money to the household? Even just for groceries or utility bills. What? Why should I give my money to you? You're working too. That's no way to speak. We're a married couple, aren't we? At least split the living expenses with me. For the first time, I felt like I had really stood up to James. I had been paying for all the groceries and utilities, and life had been really tough. It's impossible for one person to support a lifestyle meant for two. Yet, James didn't understand. Perhaps he never tried to. To him, I was nothing more than a decorative piece. Acquired solely for the sake of inheriting the company. What's this? Did you marry me just for my money? That's not true at all. It's difficult to maintain the lifestyle you want with just my income. That's why I'm asking for your cooperation. Shut up. This is why I hate being around poor people. It makes me sick. Don't show your face around for a while. It's a hopeless conversation. But I hesitate to consult my in-laws. They are such good people that I worry it would distress them and strain our relationship if they knew the cause was James. They are as important to me as my own parents. If the in-laws were to scold James, he would take it out on me. I didn't want that either. The house we live in was built by my in-laws. They provided the money and left everything about the house up to me and James. Back then, James was still reasonable. And it was enjoyable to decide on things for the house together. Now, those days seem like a distant past. However, to repay the kindness of the in-laws who even built a house for us, I decided to persevere a bit longer. I renewed my determination and headed to work. Bearing the gratitude I felt towards my in-laws while enduring life with James for 3 years. James's behavior has only gotten worse, and he is now famously a profligate son. Moreover, he boasts at drinking parties that he doesn't contribute financially to our home. Because of this, I've been called weak for not being able to control my husband. And on the contrary, a pitiful woman who got stuck with a worthless man. Even when I shop, I feel like strangers are talking about me. Some of my colleagues also look at me disapprovingly for not being able to discipline James properly. Why do you let your husband do whatever he wants? If I had someone like that at home, I couldn't stand it. Maybe she's afraid of being told to get a divorce? After all, even with someone like him, she might become the president's wife if she keeps quiet. If that profligate son becomes the president, well, the president's wife will basically be like the president, huh? Then it's like a takeover. She looks so demure but scary. Complaining to James only results in being yelled at. And if such a person became the president, the employees would definitely be in trouble. So they probably direct their dissatisfaction and anxiety at me. Kelly, you look pale. Are you okay? President. Yes, I'm fine. If you have any troubles, feel free to talk to us. Yes, thank you very much. The in-laws are also subtly concerned about me. But I still haven't been able to discuss James with them. By postponing the discussion thinking I could still endure, I feel guilty as if I'm keeping secrets. I couldn't speak well about my current situation and became reticent. And it seemed that I had inadvertently created distance between myself and my in-laws. The distance became like that of handling each other with kid gloves, and it weighed on my heart. Really good people, and yet, I'm causing them to look troubled because of me. There she goes being a goody two-shoes again. Who would want to be the president's wife so badly to put up with such a husband? That profligate son called her a gold digger, and it might not be entirely wrong. After all, they built a house for her. The workplace has become a place where I feel alienated. Going to work is becoming increasingly depressing. The only relief is that my immediate superior, General Manager Daniel Brown, treats me very impartially. James unilaterally dislikes him, but he treats even someone as marginalized as me very professionally. With distance created between me and the in-laws, and being the subject of rumors, his indifferent attitude is a relief. Kelly, please make a copy of this document. Yes, General Manager. She's trying to look good in front of both the General Manager and the Vice President. Such a people pleaser. Maybe she's trying to make sure she's on the good side of whoever becomes president? Oh my. What an ambitious woman. I'm just doing what I need to do. No matter what they say, I'm just working, so I'm not in the wrong. No matter how many times I tell myself that, my hands are shaking. After a while, I heard that the in-laws had told James, "We cannot let you take over the company in this state." James, who was red-faced with anger, told me this. "It's your fault. It's because you still haven't had a child that I'm being told this. I don't understand how it came to this. After all, he comes home in the mornings every day, how can we conceive a child? Why does it turn into this kind of conversation? Your parents just want you to work seriously. Are you saying I don't work? Don't joke around. I'm much busier than you. And I contribute to the company. I earn a better salary than you. There's no way you understand my work. Once it comes to this, it will never be a conversation." I can only wait for him to vent his frustrations like a tantrum-prone child. I shrugged and waited for the storm to pass while James continued to yell. "It's your fault. Because you can't have a child. A boy. Get fertility treatments or whatever, and hurry up and give birth to an heir. That's..." Don't talk back. James started to throw things around in a tantrum again. So I crouched down to protect my head from flying objects. "Okay, I'll undergo fertility treatment. Will you cooperate? Why should I have to do anything when it's your fault? You're the defective one. Don't make a fool of me." As James raged, I was frightened, but at the same time, disdain and exhaustion overwhelmed me. Why do I have to endure this kind of treatment? I felt that the in-laws meant well by cautioning him, but it seems to have backfired. Yet, no normal person could imagine taking such actions. If I do as he says, his tantrums subside for a while. I gave up on everything and let James have his way. After a year of fertility treatments as James demanded, tests showed no abnormalities in my body, and I was fully capable of conceiving. When it was suggested that the issue might be with my husband, James stubbornly refused to be tested. James became moody and sometimes lashed out at objects. And neither the doctors nor I could press him much. Accused of infertility, James angrily told me to see a different doctor. But the results were the same at every clinic, which only made him more irritable. "Could you please come to the hospital with me just once? There might be something that I'm not aware of." I had been enduring his moods out of fear, but one day I decided to humbly ask. "What?" "I'm busy. I don't have time to deal with your mess. But without your cooperation, we can't even do in vitro fertilization. It seems there's no issue with my eggs, so I'd like to move on to the next step. I know it takes your time, but could you help just this once?" It turned out to be right to say it was for my fertility treatment rather than his tests, as he seemed less irritated by that. He frowned slightly but looked at me suspiciously. "You're paying for that treatment, right?" "Of course. It's my mess, after all. I'll take full responsibility." "All right then. I guess I'll go." Although his arrogant attitude was exasperating, I managed to get James to go to the hospital with me. He frequently talked about money, and it was hard to say who was the real gold digger. However, he seemed quite pleased seeing how eagerly I wanted his child. He must like being fawned over. No matter his age, he's childish and immature. Even at the hospital, he reluctantly followed the instructions. And then stormed off against the advice of me and the doctor. In the end, I was the one who stayed to listen to the doctor's explanations, feeling utterly lost. Given his nature, I wasn't particularly surprised by his subsequent actions. It's been a while, Kelly. Sister. Why are you here? One day, my sister Courtney suddenly visited our house. With a big belly and a proud smile, I had a bad feeling. Courtney had always been carefree and had lived as she pleased, barely working at home until a little while ago. However, she stopped coming to our parents' home after I married James. Our parents were initially worried, but knowing Courtney's habit of playing around, they assumed she was probably living with a boyfriend. But I never expected her to be pregnant. From the looks of it, she seemed close to giving birth. I'm pregnant with James's child. It's going to be born soon. Please, divorce James. They must have planned this together. Unusually, James, who was at home, embraced Courtney's shoulders and sneered at me. Courtney is right. I don't need a woman who can't get pregnant forever. I've been with you only to please our parents, but I can't take it anymore. I hear the treatments are just a waste of money and you're not getting pregnant? James is troubled by that. Laughing triumphantly, Courtney and the condescending James were disgustingly cozy. My anger turned to disbelief. Really, I've been troubled because you can't get pregnant. You're just defective because of your infertility. It's appalling how they choose such vile words. They seem to think of nothing but hurting me. Someone defective like you isn't needed anymore. I'm getting remarried, so let's get a divorce. I was at a loss for words. I knew he was promiscuous, but I never thought he would cheat with my sister. When I introduced Courtney to James, I felt something was off by how she flattered him. But I didn't expect it to go this far. Understood. I'll get ready, so please wait a bit. Seeing me subdued, both Courtney and James seemed pleased. What could drive them to this extent? I have never harassed or hurt them, but I'm shocked to be so disliked that I received such treatment. Hurry up, okay? Stress is bad for the baby. If you have any sense left, you'd celebrate your sister and husband's new start by quickly packing your things and leaving. Hearing a sense from James was a surprise. Being lectured about morals and common sense by these people is the ultimate humiliation. Can you just leave already? There's no point in having someone who can't have children around. Go back to your parents' house. They're soft on you, even if you're a failure, right? Hearing my sister's words made my blood boil. My parents, who quietly supported me as I diligently studied, treated us equally. But that was the same for Courtney, despite her late nights out. They worried and scolded her while cherishing her all along. I never felt that their love was uneven. In fact, considering my sister's misbehavior compared to my being somewhat of a model student, I sometimes felt I was less loved. What is she even talking about? I suppressed the urge to yell and pretended to be calm. It will take some time to pack and explain the situation to others. Please wait a little longer. As I feigned dejection, Courtney and James were visibly delighted. Especially Courtney, who, despite pretending to be displeased, couldn't hide her smirk. She seemed to take pleasure in tormenting me, her expression twisted in malice. I don't want to see your gloomy face. James, following Courtney's lead, chimed in. It would be terrible if Courtney and the baby fell ill. We'll rent a hotel today. Just leave immediately. Got it. After saying what they wanted to say, they left the house. The house that my in-laws bought for us. They must have wanted their son to be responsible. And they cherished it. My parents were also worried about my sister. The two of them trampled on such feelings from everyone around them. I will get my revenge, definitely. If that's what they want, fine. I'll let them have the divorce. I wanted to divorce too, so that is welcome. But I will never let those two be happy. Just wait and see. I will show them hell. I prepared myself. I packed up and left the house immediately. But I dragged out the divorce proceedings for various reasons. During that time, I actively worked on networking and gathering evidence. My sister's belly was quite large, so she would probably give birth while I was preparing my revenge. That's what happens with no planning. Being unmarried and giving birth must be tough, but those two don't seem to fully realize it. They keep telling me to hurry up and divorce, but I didn't sense any desperation in their demands. Really despicable people. But I wonder if it's really James's child. After all, that man. Doubting, I decided to consult with my in-laws. They had also been informed by James and were already willing to discuss with me. Everything is ready. Now, all that's left is to show them hell. A month passed quickly, and I received news that my sister had given birth. What nerve do you have coming here? Still hanging on to James and not divorced yet. When I entered the hospital room, my sister looked displeased. She was smirking, so she must enjoy making snide remarks at me. James also followed Courtney's lead, giving me aggressive looks. I don't know what you've told our parents. But we're practically strangers now, so stop interfering. You made me get scolded. I think it's because of your unreasonable behavior. But it's useless to say anything, so I won't. My sister might be your stalker. That's bothersome, when I have you. Truly despicable people. I held back a sigh and tried not to show any emotion. Congratulations on your childbirth. My words were met only with disdainful looks from both my sister and James. They won't be able to keep up that attitude for long. Excuse us. First of all, well done on the childbirth. The in-laws entered the hospital room. Then, my parents also came in. Sorry for the crowd. We have something to discuss. It looks like things are going to be a bit hectic from here. Courtney and James seemed confident of their victory, directing mockery at me. Dad, Mom. Finally, a grandchild is born. Isn't that great? Please, Mother, Father, hold the baby. Courtney was already sweet-talking the in-laws in a high-toned voice. The in-laws looked stern, and instead, my parents spoke up. Courtney, we've indulged you too much. We never thought you would grow up to treat your own sister this way. We thought we'd always be on your side, but we've reached our limit. You are no longer welcome in our home. You are disowned. Hearing this, my mother started crying. We told you countless times to be considerate of others, but it was all in vain. Wait, what is this? My sister was taken aback by the sudden disownment. I can't believe you would say that to me, the one who just had a grandchild. I don't want to be part of a poor family like yours anyway. James took Courtney's side. He put his hand on her shoulder and glared at my parents. How unreasonable. How can you say such things to your daughter who is exhausted from childbirth? Even if you are Courtney's parents, that's unforgivable. Then, boasting to Courtney, he said, Don't worry, I'll protect you. James. Lost in their own world, intoxicated by themselves. After all the trouble they've caused and to insult their own parents by calling them poor. I can't believe my sister's audacity. My parents must have been even more shocked than me by the actual words thrown at them. But they seemed prepared, showing no signs of disturbance. Maybe there had been conflicts and disputes between my sister and my parents that I didn't know about, and they had written her off long ago. You may look like this doesn't concern you, but you're also disowned. You won't inherit the company, and you are fired effective today. Don't ever show your face again. Huh? What do you mean? Now it was James who raised his voice. My sister turned pale and trembled. Having insulted their own parents to gain status. And now that status is as fragile as a candle in the wind. I struggled not to laugh at the sight of the two of them panicking. I'm the only heir, right? We have a child now. Doesn't that secure the family's future? What era do you think this is? The in-laws were appalled by James's argument. James's face was pitiful, as if he was about to cling to his in-laws. My sister, Courtney, still didn't fully understand the situation. And just looked back and forth between James and the in-laws, flustered. I thought you could run the company if you were competent. But making you vice president was a mistake. I'll leave the company to a reliable subordinate. What the heck? Are you kidding me? Finally, James's temper exploded, and his shouting filled the room. However, the father-in-law and mother-in-law didn't even flinch, seemingly used to it. I'm about to become the president. That can't be allowed. That's just something you decided on your own. We didn't agree to it. Even the mother-in-law, who had been quiet beside the father-in-law, now confronted James firmly. You said you were going to be the president and even borrowed money. But you need to find a job and pay back the money yourself. We can't take care of you anymore. But it wasn't surprising that James, who often went out to play, was in debt. He should have been making decent money as the vice president. But his love for flashy things and women meant that his salary was never enough. It seems he also bought cars and apartments without telling the in-laws or me. And who knows how much debt he had. Then, Courtney finally seemed to understand the situation. And dropped her flattering attitude, glaring at James. What's going on? What was all this for? I even had a child for you. But James was not in a state to care about her. He was too busy yelling at the in-laws. You told me to prove the lineage if a child was going to be born. I even got tested for that. What was that for? Courtney's face drained of color. It must be inconvenient if the tests were conducted. Wait, what's that? I didn't know about this. Courtney's shrill voice made James frown. He seemed annoyed, as if he wanted to say she was irritating, glaring at her. The cozy atmosphere from earlier seemed like a lie. What's the big deal? It's my child, so it shouldn't be a problem. Why are you freaking out? Be quiet, I'm busy right now. Actually, about that. A doctor called in by my father entered the room with a troubled look. He was a friend of the father-in-law and had agreed to help us with our revenge. Courtney's child is not related by blood to you. What? The room fell silent for a moment. Courtney gasped, and James was sweating coldly. Both were pale-faced at the doctor's words. Thinking this was my chance, I pulled out several photos I had hidden in my bag. What's this? What? What are those? The photos were of Courtney. There were dozens of pictures of her with a man, including some entering a hotel. While the woman was consistently Courtney, the man was not always James. It seemed she had restrained her relationships after getting pregnant. So I couldn't gather evidence myself. But Courtney's ex-boyfriend had hired a detective to investigate her infidelity. I compensated him for the investigation results. Your ex-boyfriend, who you dumped after getting pregnant, hired a detective. If you wish, I've also gathered statements from your ex-boyfriend and other partners. James looked at Courtney with murderous eyes. He might look like a victim, but he also must descend into hell. Also, remember when we went to the hospital to get help with the fertility treatment? I have the results from that visit too. What? Tests? I didn't hear about that. We had to do some tests before we could proceed with in vitro fertilization. That's obvious, isn't it? The doctor tried to explain, but James ignored the doctor's words and left. His selfish actions had cornered him into this situation. It was his own doing. Your sperm motility is very low. You were diagnosed with male infertility. If you think it's a lie, look at the test results yourself. No, that's a lie. James's reaction was more amusing than I had imagined. His face turned pale, and he snatched the test results from my hand. His eyes widening as he read and reread the contents, sweat pouring from his body. His lips quivered, and he looked like he might collapse any moment. The DNA test also showed you are not the father. And the father is one of the men in these photos. As James was shaken by the revelation of his infertility, I spoke up. Then James thrust the test results back at me and started yelling at Courtney. You tricked me, you whore. But Courtney fired back just as fiercely. Shut up. It's your fault for being sterile. No way. It's your fault for being a whore. James, unwilling to accept reality, then glared at me. How busy? Hey. You must be lying. How can I believe this piece of paper? You're just harassing me. You're the defective one, not me. Defective, indeed. The in-laws and my parents frowned upon hearing his words. It's unclear whether he's unaware of the surrounding atmosphere or just doesn't care. The more he spoke, the worse James made his own situation. My test results from various hospitals show no abnormalities. If you can't believe it, why don't you get tested at different hospitals yourself? Like I have time for that. Enough already. Finally, the father-in-law spoke up. You're the one who needs to stop. Have some shame. It's disgraceful. Please don't add to your embarrassment. We feel sorry for Kelly. James was taken aback by the words of his parents. His shouting was replaced by Courtney interjecting. It's all your fault that my future is ruined. What are you going to do about this? Shut up, you whore. That's my line. You tricked me. Take that kid and disappear. What followed was an unbearable exchange of terrible arguments. Ultimately, it was a relationship tied by money. Their true feelings and desires laid bare. It was embarrassing even to witness. You wouldn't have anything good about you if it wasn't for your money. A woman who can't get married living a flashy life shouldn't talk so high and mighty. Both sets of parents were holding their heads in dismay. I'm speechless with disgust. How did they end up like this? It's so unfair for the baby. The child isn't to blame. I was worried about the child too. Raised by such parents, the future looked bleak. And it was even questionable if the child could be properly raised. Ignoring our concerns, Courtney looked at us. It seemed she cared more about herself than her child's future. Your life is a mess because you snagged the wrong man. What are you going to do about it? Take responsibility. James grabbed Courtney's shoulder. He looked like he was about to hit her. What did you say to me? Don't touch me, you sterile man. Truly, it was utterly exasperating. I let out a long sigh as if to release all that I had been holding back. Your reckless actions are your own responsibility, not mine. In fact, it's you who should be taking responsibility for them. What? Don't mess with me. You've always looked down on me. I've always hated that look in your eyes. It seems it was Courtney who looked down on my earnest way of living. Perhaps she had her grievances against me and our parents. What a coincidence. I've also continuously despised your words and attitude. What a way to speak. Really, you're such an unlovable woman. That's why you get dumped. Calling that a double standard would be apartment. Her words were complete nonsense. Talking is a waste of time. To conclude, I've decided that you two will take responsibility. I thrust a copy of the demand for compensation, prepared by a lawyer, at Courtney and James. I was also demanding a divorce from James. Talking it out with these two would be futile, so I resorted to taking drastic measures. Both of you will pay what you owe. It was a small amount considering the years and treatment I had endured. But the two were furious as if ignited. Demanding compensation from your own sister. That's unforgivable. Money grubber. You want money that badly. All I wanted was to show them hell, and money was merely a means to that end. Judging by their reaction, it indeed hit them hardest. Their pathetic squabbling became too much for both sets of parents, who couldn't bear it any longer. Considering what Kelly went through, this is the least you could do. Be thankful it's only this much. The one who cheated with her sister's husband has no right to speak now. Your audacity is appalling. However, rebukes from their own blood had no effect on such selfish people. Their eyes glittered as if everyone but themselves were enemies. The sight of them losing their composure, though forewarned, was terrifying. If you're going to act like strangers, then stop pretending to be parents. Right. You have nothing to do with us anymore. If they had shown some reflection here, perhaps their disownment could have been revoked. But foolish people prioritize their trivial pride and desires, oblivious to the consequences. Why? Why has it come to this? Our eyes met. I had a bad feeling. But before I could act, James was faster. James lunged at me with a murderous look. Kelly. It's all your fault. Ah. The scream just came out. But the expected impact did not come. Daniel. You were here too. Daniel Brown, the general manager who was outside the room, had restrained James. The father-in-law looked down at the snarling James with a sad expression. We've decided to let Daniel take over the company. So you better work hard to pay Kelly the compensation. James despised Daniel the most. He had always feared that his position was threatened. Now that his fears had materialized, he finally lost his mental balance. Like a child throwing a tantrum, James started screaming and thrashing around. But Daniel, holding him down, didn't flinch. I always knew you were trouble, but I never imagined it would come to this. Are you all right? Please take him away quickly. Shortly after, security arrived. They took over from Daniel, trying to lead James out of the hospital. It was then that James seemed to realize his predicament. Breaking free from the guards, he clung to my feet. James, looking pitifully teary-eyed, was truly sickening. I was wrong, please don't leave me. Don't you have any pride? Daniel said what I had wanted to say. He then pulled James away from clinging to me and protectively put his arm around my shoulders. It seemed that James finally understood everything through this series of events. You're kidding me. Mocking me. Don't think you can be the only one happy, you whore. With those parting words, he was taken away, and I hoped never to face him again. I can only hope the trial goes smoothly. Courtney, left behind in the room, changed her expression when she saw Daniel embracing me. Ah. You. Aren't you seeing another man too? I don't know what you are misunderstanding, but she has done nothing dishonest. I am simply smitten with her and have been courting her. It was embarrassing to be spoken of like that. I blushed and wanted to hide my face. Our parents and the in-laws, and even Daniel, watched over me warmly. Afterwards, James and Courtney were cut off from the family, burdened by debts and compensation. James had intended to marry Courtney, but after finding out he had no money, she declared her disinterest and left him. Moreover, she did not take the child, so my parents adopted her and named her Alyssa. She is a lovely girl. I had planned to take her in anyway. But witnessing my sister leave her child at the hospital confirmed just how awful she was. She was not fit to care for a child. While my parents are mainly raising her, I, having separated from James and returned to my parents' home, help care for her. I still work at my former in-laws' company, so our relationship remains good. My former in-laws also dote on the child as if she were their own granddaughter. Surrounded by love, she is growing up well. I heard that Courtney, needing to pay me compensation, got into the nightlife business but ended up disappearing before finishing her payments after getting hooked on a bartender. James is also chased by debts and compensation. And it seems several women who were after his potential presidency have also severed ties with him. Moreover, with massive debts and compensation payments looming with no end in sight, those lending him money are reaching their limits. Like Courtney, there are rumors he might disappear as well. Years later, I married Daniel. We have 2 children and are living happily. Okay, today we're going to Grandma's house.
Yay!
I'm going to play games with my sister. Don't be too demanding with your sister, okay? Alyssa gets along well with us, and my children affectionately call her sister. Kelly, watch your step. Yes, thank you, honey. Daniel has been kind to me for years since our marriage. He says he fell in love with my strength and has always cherished me. With him, I'm sure we can overcome anything and always be happy. I am convinced that this is a reward from God for surviving that hell. I love you. I love you too. I have finally found happiness.